There's a very specific flavor of anxiety that I think is hardwired into the modern brain. It's that low-level hum you get when you scroll through the news for too long, or see some weird weather pattern, or honestly, just watch another trailer for a dystopian blockbuster. It's the end-of-the-world vibe.
It's the ultimate cultural obsession, isn't it?
Yeah.
We seem to have this fixation on our own extinction.
We really do. And usually when we picture the end, we have a very specific script in our heads. We're picturing Matthew chapter 24. We see earthquakes, stars falling out of the sky.
Wars, famine, basically a global disaster movie.
Exactly. Directed by Michael Bay.
That is the literal interpretation that has dominated popular culture and, let's be honest, a lot of fear-mongering for centuries. It's the idea of physical planetary destruction, the big one.
Right. But today, we're going to flip that script entirely. We've pulled together a stack of fascinating exegetical texts and theological analyses, the kind of, dense, heavy lifting most people don't have time for. And the mission of this deep dive is to look at the argument that Matthew 24, well, it isn't about the planet blowing up at all.
No. The sources we're looking at argue that this text is actually a psychological and spiritual roadmap. It's not about the external world collapsing. It's about an internal collapse.
So it's the end of an old state of being, an old version of yourself to make way for something new.
That's it, exactly.
So we're trading asteroid hitting Earth for ego hitting rock bottom.
That is a great way to put it. It is about the painful, chaotic, but absolutely necessary process of spiritual regeneration.
I love that. So let's unpack this. We have a lot of symbols to decode wars, famines, fleeing to mountains, and the big one, the second coming. But before we get to all that, we have to define what is actually ending. The sources talk about the end of the age. If it's not the end of the timeline of history, what is it?
So, strictly looking at the text, the end of the age refers to the end of the church. But we have to be incredibly careful with that word. In these sources, church doesn't mean the brick building down the street with a sign out front. It doesn't even necessarily mean a specific denomination.
So we're not talking about the Methodist Church closing its doors or the Vatican shutting down?
Not at all. Church, in this deep spiritual sense, is a state of humanity. It describes a mindset where love, which the text refers to as good, and faith, which corresponds to truth, exist together.
Okay.
So when the sources talk about the end of the church, they're describing a state of spiritual winter. It's a time when charity has grown cold.
Charity has grown cold. That is a haunting phrase. It sounds less like a theology textbook and more like a diagnosis of modern isolation.
It really is. It describes a state where self-love and the love of worldly things have completely replaced love for others. The church inside the human mind, that capacity for connection, it's died because the warmth of genuine goodness is gone.
The sources use this vivid imagery of the temple to explain this. The disciples are showing Jesus the temple buildings, pointing out how massive and impressive they are. And it's like showing off a magnificent institution that looks perfect on the outside, but is actually hollow inside.
That is the core of the symbolism. The temple represents that internal church. But Jesus looks at this massive structure and says, "There shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Now, literally, that just sounds like rubble.
Yeah, a demolition crew.
Yeah.
But spiritually, we don't have literal stones in our heads.
Well, we do have building blocks. Spiritually, stones correspond to truth.
Okay.
Truths are the building blocks of our worldview. We build our reality out of them. So this prophecy isn't about architecture. It's predicting a total deconstruction of what you believe to be true.
So it's a state where falsity lies, misconceptions, has so completely taken over that not a single genuine truth remains stacked on top of good.
Precisely. It represents a total mental and spiritual collapse. The structure of what you thought was true, it just falls apart.
That's actually terrifying. It's that moment you realize your entire worldview might be wrong. And that brings us to the famous signs of the times.
The signs everyone looks for on the news.
Exactly. This is the part where people usually start buying canned goods. Wars, famines, earthquakes. If you turn on the TV right now, you could convince yourself this is happening literally. But let's decode these. Let's start with wars and rumors of wars.
Okay. So if we move away from geopolitics, war, in the internal sense, represents spiritual conflict. It's a battle within the mind.
A battle between what and what? Like my conscience and my cravings?
Essentially, yes. It's the battle between truths and falsities. Or, even more visceral, the fighting of lusts, evil desires against one another. The sources describe it as a state of mental chaos. You're debating with yourself, reasoning based on fallacies. Your internal world is just in a constant state of friction.
So when you feel torn, or you're rationalizing bad behavior, doing mental gymnastics to justify being selfish, that's an internal war.
It is. And rumors of wars would be the initial stirrings of those conflicts, that cognitive dissonance humming in the background.
Okay, what about famine? Because literally, that's a lack of food. But internally,
Internally, the soul needs food too, and the food of the soul is knowledge of what is good and true.
so a spiritual famine isn't an empty stomach.
No, it is a famine of the word. It is a lack of understanding. It's spiritual starvation where the soul has nothing substantial to feed on because you've cut yourself off from the good.
That makes perfect sense. If you're full of self-love, you're starving for actual connection or truth. It's like eating junk food. You feel full, but you're malnourished.
That is a perfect analogy. You're consuming falsities which offer no spiritual nutrition. You feel full of your own opinions, but your spirit is withering.
Okay, next on the list, pestilence,
Plague.
disease.
This one is fascinating. Pestilence represents the consumption and destruction of good by evil. Think of it like a spiritual infection.
An infection.
Yes. Falsities, lies, we tell ourselves, twisted logic, they infect the mind and slowly kill off the healthy tissue, which is the good in us. It's the rot that sets in when you stop living with integrity.
And earthquakes. That feels like the big one.
Well, if the earth corresponds to the church, or the ground of the mind, the foundation of what we believe, then an earthquake is a fundamental shift in that state. It is the shaking of the very foundations of your reality.
It's that moment where everything you thought you stood on just moves.
Yeah.
The rug pull of the soul.
Exactly. And this leads to the cosmic signs, which are often the most terrifying. The sun darkening, the moon not giving light, the stars falling.
In a disaster movie, that's the climax. The lights go out. But you're saying this is about our internal lights.
It is much more intimate. In the spiritual code, the sun corresponds to love, specifically celestial good. It's the source of heat and life. So the sun darkening means love is extinguished in the human heart. You've gone cold.
You stop caring about others. And the moon?
The moon corresponds to faith or spiritual truth. Just as the physical moon reflects the sun, our faith is a reflection of our love. So if the moon isn't giving light, it means faith has gone dark. It's no longer shining because the love is gone.
And the stars falling from the sky. That feels so final.
Stars represent specific knowledges of good and truth. Bright points of understanding. When they fall, it means those specific knowledges are lost or forgotten. You essentially lose your navigation.
So you're in the dark, without a map, without faith, and without love.
That's it. It's a total spiritual blackout.
Right.
And that blackout sets the stage for what the text calls the abomination of desolation.
Which I have to admit is the most heavy metal phrase in the entire Bible.
It is.
The abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. Visualizing that literally you think of some monster in a temple. But what is it really?
We'll connect this back to what we just said about the sun going dark. The holy place in us is the throne of the heart. It's the center of our being that should be reserved for the divine, for love and truth. The abomination is when self-love displaces the divine and sits on that throne.
So the abomination is is, or at least the worst part of us.
It is what the sources call the proprium.
The proprium.
Yes, it's a Latin term. It basically means one's own hood. It's the ego when it claims to be the source of life. When the proprium or self-love becomes the ruling principle of your life, that is the abomination of desolation because it desolates the soul. It leaves everything empty and barren.
And that triggers the instruction to run. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Now, usually running away is seen as cowardice, but here it seems like a strategy.
It's the only strategy that works. In the code, Judea represents the church at its end, that state of destruction we've been describing. You can't stay there, you have to move.
And why mountains?
Mountains are high places. Spiritually, they represent states of celestial love and charity. So when you realize your old self is collapsing under the weight of its own ego, the instruction is, run toward love, don't try to fix the rubble, move to a higher state of being.
There are some very specific warnings here about how to run. One of them is about the person on the rooftop. It says, let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. That seems oddly specific.
It is beautiful when you decode it. The rooftop represents a person in a state of charity, someone who has reached a high level of love. The house below represents doctrinal debates or lower reasoning. The warning is, If you are in a state of love, do not go back down into the weeds of intellectual arguing.
So don't lower your vibration to win an argument on Twitter.
That is a very modern application, but yes, do not regress. If you're in love, stay there. Don't go down to the lower level to retrieve doctrinal stones. You don't need them anymore.
And the person in the field, let him who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak.
A field represents a state of good work, actually doing something useful. The cloak represents external forms of truth or ritual. So, if you're doing the real work of good, don't turn back to pick up the external rituals or appearances. The substance matters more than the form.
That is a powerful takeaway. When you're moving toward a higher spiritual state, do not look back at the external stuff you used to rely on.
That's it. You can't bring the baggage of the old ego into the new state. And the text adds a fascinating seasonal warning. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath.
We talked about winter being a cold state, a lack of love.
Yes. Do not let this transition happen when you're spiritually cold. If you try to flee the ego without love in your heart, you won't make it. The journey is impossible without the warmth of charity.
And the Sabbath. Isn't the Sabbath a good thing? It's a holy day?
Usually, yes. But in this specific context, the Sabbath represents a state of external, pious ritual that lacks internal warmth. It's what the sources call profanation.
Profanation. Can we get an explain, like I'm 5 on that?
Sure, profanation's when you know the truth, and you maybe even act like you're holy on the outside, but inside you deny it. It's mixing the holy with the profane, going through the motions. The warning is, don't get stuck in empty rituals or cold lovelessness when you're trying to escape the collapse of the ego.
So we have this collapse, the flight to the mountains, and then we hit the Great Tribulation.
Yes, the struggle.
And honestly, the way the source material describes this, it sounds absolutely brutal. But then I saw in your notes that you claim this is actually a story of hope. How is a Great Tribulation hopeful?
Because of what it produces. The source uses the analogy of alchemy. To get pure gold, what do you have to do?
You have to melt the ore. You have to burn it.
You have to burn off the impurities. That process is violent, it's hot, it destroys the structure of the ore, but it reveals the gold. The Great Tribulation represents temptation, the intense spiritual struggle where the old man, the ego, is dismantled.
So it feels like an apocalypse to the ego because the ego is literally dying.
Yes. It's a painful separation of the good from the evil within us. And the text says, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved.
Shortening the days. What does that mean?
It is an expression of divine mercy. If that intense spiritual struggle lasted too long, the human spirit would break. We couldn't handle it. So the Lord limits the intensity of the struggle to exactly what the individual can handle to ensure their salvation. The heat is turned up just high enough, but not so high it destroys the gold.
That puts a very different spin on suffering. It's not random punishment. It's controlled. It's purposeful.
It is purposeful, but during this struggle, the ego fights back dirty. This is where the false Christs and false prophets come in.
Oh, right. If anyone says, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. I assume this isn't about people on street corners with megaphones.
No. During the process of regeneration, when you're vulnerable, the ego will create false Christs. These are false ideas that claim to be divine or true.
Can you give me a concrete example? What does a false Christ look like in my head?
Think of intellectual rationalizations for bad behavior. Let's say you're angry at someone. A false Christ is the thought that says, this anger is righteous. You are the hero here. Punishing them is actually the right thing to do.
Ah, so it masks itself as a virtue.
Exactly. It claims to be truth, but it's serving the ego. Those are false prophets. They claim to have the authority of truth, but they're lying.
And the text warns us not to go out to them. If they say he's in the desert, do not go out. Or in the inner rooms, do not believe it.
Inner rooms sounds secretive, doesn't it? It implies hidden knowledge, complex arguments. The warning is, don't be seduced by external validations or overcomplicated rationalizations. Stick to the internal good.
So if we survive the tribulation, if we flee to the mountains, if we ignore the false Christs, we get to the main event, the second coming.
The Perusia.
Now, I grew up with the picture of Jesus descending on a physical cloud, trumpets blaring.
Right.
But our sources are very firm. That is an error of the senses.
It is. The sources are categorical about this. The second coming is not a physical event, it is a spiritual event.
So let's talk about the clouds. If they aren't water vapor, what are they?
In the language of correspondence, clouds represent the literal sense of the word. The Bible text itself, the stories, the history, the laws, they veil the brightness of the internal meaning.
just like a cloud obscures the sun.
Exactly.
Okay, so the cloud is the text we read. What is the glory?
The glory is the internal spiritual sense within that text. So the second coming is not Jesus floating down to earth. It is the revelation of the internal spiritual truth inside the literal text.
It's like breaking a code. It's the moment the text stops being just ancient history and starts being about you.
It is an intellectual and spiritual opening. It's the moment when the cloud, the literal story, becomes transparent and you see the glory, the spiritual truth shining through it.
And the text describes this coming as lightning. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, why lightning?
Think about lightning. It is instantaneous. It illuminates everything in a flash. You can't miss it.
And specifically, from east to west.
Directions matter here. In this symbolic geography, east represents love, the rising sun, the source. West represents the understanding or knowledge. So the flash comes from love and illuminates the understanding.
It's an aha moment.
It is the ultimate aha moment. It's when love suddenly illuminates your mind and you understand the truth with absolute clarity. That is the second coming. It happens inside you.
That is, wow. That is much more personal and frankly much more powerful than some global event.
It transforms the believer. And that brings us to the elect. The text says the angels will gather the elect from the four winds.
Who are the elect? Is it a VIP club? Because usually that implies a very small, exclusive group.
Not in the way we usually think. The elect are not a specific denomination. They are defined by their state of life. They are those who live a life of charity. They have faith within charity.
So it's not about having the right membership card. It's about having the right heart.
Exactly. And being gathered from the four winds means they are gathered from all states of life, from every corner of the human experience. If the good is there, the truths represented by the angels will find it and gather it.
So what does this all mean for us? We've gone through the collapse, the internal wars, the flight to love, the temptation, and the revelation.
It means that Matthew 24 isn't a prediction of a future date on a calendar. We don't need to be checking the sky for signs. It is a description of a process that happens or needs to happen inside every single person.
It's the cycle of regeneration.
Yes. We all build old churches in our minds, structures based on ego, selfishness, false beliefs. For us to be reborn, those structures have to come down, not one stone left upon another.
And that collapse feels like the end of the world.
It does. It feels like the sun has gone dark and the earth is shaking. It feels like depression or anxiety or a crisis of faith. But the source material is telling us, don't be afraid. That chaos is the necessary friction of change. It's the death of the ego to make room for charity.
It reminds me of that alchemy analogy again. The fire isn't there to destroy you, it's there to purify you. The rubble of the old temple is just the construction site for the new one.
That is the hope embedded in the apocalypse. The end of the world happens inside us whenever we transition from a self-centered life to a good-centered life.
It's a roadmap for the hardest thing we'll ever do.
But also the most rewarding, because the end result isn't desolation, it's the glory.
You know, this leaves me with a thought that's a little provocative. We spend so much time looking at the news, looking for signs, wondering if the end is coming. But if we take this deep dive seriously,
Yes.
if the second coming is actually a personal moment of spiritual clarity, that flash of lightning where the internal meaning of life is revealed to you, I have to ask, have you already missed it? Or when your personal world starts falling apart, when the earthquakes start hitting your life, is that actually the best thing that could possibly happen to you?
That is the question. Is it a disaster or is it the beginning of the glory?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
A pleasure.
We'll see you next time.